All right, so we are up to day 134 of going through my old journal. And the quote for today says, "A bird sitting in a tree is never afraid of the branch breaking because her trust is not in the branch but in her own wings." And then it says, "Do you believe in yourself? Write about your relationship with yourself and all the reasons why you rock." Okay, so if you're following along, just take a second to think about how you'd respond to this, and let's see what I wrote. Okay, do you believe in yourself? I said, it's weird to think about. Like, I feel like I do believe in myself quite a bit, but at the same time, I don't really have confidence in myself. Like, in general, I feel like I can do most things successfully, but I always hold an expectation of failure at the same time. And I've talked about this a few times. So, like, I have, like, hope that things will be good, that I'll be successful, but then I always keep, like, in the back of my mind the possibility that I'm not going to succeed. That way, if success doesn't happen, I'm not upset. Maybe I go on about this. So yeah, I feel like I can do things or achieve things, but I don't fully expect to be able to. Every test that I've ever taken, even if I thought I aced it, I was never fully confident until I saw the final score. I feel like this is a good trait to have because I'm still motivated to try things without being completely caught off guard or devastated if things don't go my way. I said quite the opposite. I feel extra happy when I succeed because I never fully expect it. I hope for it, but never expect it because I know there are a million factors that go into every situation. Sometimes things aren't really fair and there's nothing I can do about it, so I just roll with it. So as I was reading this, I thought of a few things that just like recently happened that kind of go along with this. And actually, I think I am, like, there's been several questions that have asked about, more or less, are you an optimist or a pessimist? And I often say, well, I'm not really neither. Like, I lead more towards optimist, but you know, at the same time, I always keep this expectation that failure could happen. But I think maybe what it really is I think I just forget or ignore maybe the times that I failed, or I just don't, like, if I failed, I'm like, okay, whatever, move on to the next thing. And I think about that in particular with this most recent bodybuilding challenge that I did. So I just finished this 12-week shred, and they were having a contest. There was going to be prizes for who had like the biggest transformation, and there was like a top 10. And you know, pretty early on, my expectation was never to win. I was like, okay, well, I'll be happy if I make it in the top 10. And then as the time went by, even though I was doing really well, I was seeing how other people were doing, and kind of like my expectations came down. I was, you know, because at first I was like, maybe there's a possibility I could be in the top 10. And then by the end of it, I was like, I think it's probably unlikely that I will be in the top 10, but there's a chance. So at the end of it, I think my expectations were on point. I was like hoping that maybe I would be in the top 10, but I was like, it's probably not going to happen. And it didn't happen. I didn't make the top 10, but I'm like not that upset about it. I'm like, okay, so, but I had a major transformation. I lost a lot of weight. Like, I feel like I'm happy with where my body and my health is right now. So, you know, I'm not, you know, there was a second that I was like, oh, you know, it would have been nice to be in the top 10, but whatever. It's not a big deal. And so I just move on. And so I think some people tend to focus more on like failing, whereas I just, for like, I'm sure like a couple weeks from now, that won't even cross my mind. Like, I will never think about that contest that I did again, probably, like, or the fact that I didn't make the top 10. Like, but then you remember, like, whenever, I think I tend to remember the things that are positive that happen, and I just kind of like completely block like negative things out of my mind eventually. I don't know. But yeah, and then there was something else. So talking about like test grades. So I've talked a lot before about how I've been struggling more recently over these past couple of years with doing my PhD, and like school. I've always made good grades in school, but I'm realizing now that I always knew that I didn't study well. I always knew that I could have done better, even though I did well. I always just thought it was kind of like a fluke because I knew I wasn't studying as hard or as much as other people, and I was just always like grateful. I'm like, I must just have some lower level of intelligence that allows me to do this, but it's just now I'm realizing I was just running on adrenaline, like waiting for the last minute to study for tests, and looking into it, it seems like a part of it may have been perfectionism, because whenever I do start working on things ahead of time, like I want it to be perfect, and then it just feels overwhelming, and then I can't do it. But then if I wait till the last minute, it's like, well, I have to get something down, so it pushes me to be able to do something and kind of throw my perfectionism out of the way, because I'm just like trying to finish, if that makes sense. But what's happened recently is there was actually this class that I'm taking right now. I have been a little bit disappointed in some of my scores, because in the past, if I didn't make 100% on something, I'm like, okay, yeah, whatever. I waited till the last minute to study. Not a big deal. But in this class in particular, like this year, I've really finally, at 30 whatever 8 years old, have figured out how to study properly, like I should have been studying my whole life. And I've been putting in like more time and more effort into these classes this year, and the earlier classes, like, I think really paid off. But like this class that I'm taking now, it's like I feel like, okay, I'm doing it, I'm studying like I should be, I'm spending time on this stuff. I really feel like I'm turning in like good stuff as good as I can. And then to get like points knocked off, I'm just like, how am I doing like the worst that I've ever done? Well, not the worst that I've ever done, but like for the amount of effort that I'm putting in, it is a little bit disappointing. But I'm trying to not be disappointed by it, because I think this teacher is just a different type of teacher. So like, I don't know. It was like the first homework that I did. I spent so much time on it, and I was really like confident that like I just aced it. And then I got like a D on it, because it started out, it was like doing all these unit conversions, and like one question led into another question, led into another question. The very first question, I had used the wrong exponent. Instead of like cubed, I did squared. I think something like that. It was something small like that. But because I had messed it up on that first question, all of my other questions, like after that to a certain point, were wrong. Even though like I showed all of my work and everything, the teacher marked it all wrong. And I was just like, oh my God, like, I can't believe I got a D on this. And then, yeah, like it's been the same on some of the other homeworks. Like, I'm not even in this field. Like, this is something that I'm kind of taking that's a little bit outside of my area. And so I feel like I'm doing pretty good, like not having this background. And I can't comprehend how other people in the class are doing, because nobody's like speaking up in the class. Anyway, this is like going off track, but it's strange to like, I understand why kids could get kind of frustrated in some classes if they really like are putting in all this effort and then not making like good grades or not doing as well as they thought they did, because it was a little frustrating to me. Like that first homework, I was like, I was a little bit upset, but then when I realized I wasn't the only one that like got my, like almost everybody in the class, like he was trying to teach us a lesson of like, you really need to like double check your calculations and your work. But yeah, so it was kind of a shock at first. I'm like, oh, this is my first, like, you know, my first year of like really trying to put in effort, and then it was a little bit disappointing, but yeah, I'm trying to like just shift my thinking, and I'm not like that I'm at this point in school, I'm not as much a perfectionist anymore, because I'm like, it doesn't matter if I make a perfect score. It doesn't matter if I have the highest GPA or I do the best in the class. Like in the whole scheme of things, like applying for jobs, nobody's looking at what score you made in this one class, you know, or the score that you made on this one test. Like it's not the end of the world. And then some people would be like, well, but thinking like that, you're not going to get anywhere, because, you know, the best people are the ones that strive to be the best, you know. And maybe that's true, but like, you just got to look at your life realistically. Are you going to be the, like, is that what you want? Do you want to be like the greatest at this? Or like, if that's your goal in life, is to be the best at something, but like, I don't really care. I just want to, like, you don't have to be the best to still be successful at things. So yeah, I mean, if that's your goal and you want to be the best, then put in the time and effort. But I would say, like, if you really are putting in the time and effort and giving it your best shot, and you're still not succeeding, like, that's okay. Like, you don't have to be the best. Like, the second best at something is still pretty good. Or just, you know, whatever you got to do to be, I don't know. Yeah, I think there's like, I think it's good. Like, I think it's I know a lot of people say this, but one thing that really was like pushed in that group that I did on the bodybuilding thing is like, be your best. Like, don't compare yourself to others, because sometimes there's like nothing you can do to be as good as some other people. Like, just try to be the best that you can. And if the best that you can is not as good as somebody else, then that's fine. Like, then it is what it is, you know? I don't know. I got off track, but going back to, do you believe in yourself? I think I do. I believe in myself enough to where I know that I can do certain things, but a part of me getting older is me being more realistic about things. Like, I can be really good at some things, but other things I'm just not good at. Like, music is one of those things. I like listening to music. I like watching people play music. I think I wanted to, you know, I see people that are like playing music, and I'm like, wow, that would be really cool to be able to do that. I tried it. I'm not good at music. Like, I'm okay. I could be decent, but I just don't have this natural talent, and I don't think I would ever just, there's just not a possibility that I think even if I practice like as much as I possibly could, I could be very good, but I would never be the best. And that's just reality. Same thing with like dancing, same thing with art. And so, like, you've just got to be realistic about it. And if you like to do those things, do them. But don't get upset if you're not like the best. Just be as good as you can be. And like, you could even be the best in like your area. So that's one thing I was talking about with my roommate. I was like, okay, so what if I did bodybuilding and I was in a competition? Like, my goal would not be to be like the best everywhere. I'd be like, maybe like have the best of a certain body part in my town might be the only like realistic goal I could have, you know, that's somewhat realistic. But I don't know what I'm saying. Is that kind of defeatist to like, I think it's just realistic, and I think it's healthier to just admit that maybe you're not the best at something and that's okay. And maybe just try to find things that you enjoy and be as good as you can be. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. So yeah, I believe in myself to some extent, but I'm also realistic. Anyway, that's what I have for this. I'll be back tomorrow with day 135.